The Basement Dwellers podcast is brought to you by Player One Coffee.
At Player One Coffee, we're obsessed with gaming, coffee, and, well, gaming. Every one of our signature roasts is handcrafted and tasty as Get yours at playeronecoffee.com.
Plus, order your Player One Coffee through our affiliate link, and not only will you receive 5% off of your first order, you'll also help support our show in the process.
Press start to continue.
They are those who live in the shadows, who feed upon Doritos and Mountain Dew. They take comfort in their dark habitats as they watch reruns of sci-fi shows long past. They are the Basement Dwellers.
Show me what you got.
So say we all. So say we all. So say we all.
Indeed. Yes. This is a fertile land and we will thrive. We will rule over all this land and we will call it this land.
Make it so.
Join me. Together, we can rule the galaxy far from sun. I want to believe.
We better get back, because it'll be dark soon, and they mostly come at night. Mostly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 7 of The Basement Dwellers, a bi-weekly podcast dedicated to all activities most enjoyed by those who spend the time in the deepest, darkest, and dankest of basements everywhere. I'm your host, Wes Tanner, and tonight we are once again delving into the realm of weirdness as we talk about Conspiracies and Unexplained Phenomenon 2.0. But first, we're going to hit up some nerdy news, followed by a pre-recorded interview with a member of the Illumina-I, the Freemasons, and then end the show presenting subject matter that is sure to tickle your brain place, maybe, kinda. I'm joined as always by my fellow basement dwellers, Nick, Ron, Drew, Lauren and her birds, Tracy, Tucci, and our guests, Joe and Johnny. How's it going, guys?
Hey, Lamau.
Great.
It's safe to talk now.
Is it?
I think so.
Like silence.
Is it safe to talk? Is it? Because I'm pretty sure somebody's listening.
It's conspiracy night.
Yeah, it's never safe to talk. It's always recorded. Somebody's always listening.
Always.
Isn't that what we want?
Maybe.
I mean, maybe in this aspect, but I don't know. Wes put my whole name on the fucking website, and
it's a real gray
I don't know
area.
if I want people to listen. Government official, I gotta change that.
So let's see. We have had an extra week break in here. It was my birthday on the 4th, and
Happy birthday.
America.
To America, yeah. To America, not to me.
To America.
I mean, you are basically America. Really.
We love you.
We can go with that. So anyway, I bring that up because Drew decided to get me to mail me something special in the mail, and once again it was a whole bunch of cardboard dicks from shipadick.com. I'm gonna have to get used to saying that because Drew, you want to tell everybody what just happened over the past week or so here?
Is he back?
Oh God, is he not here?
The best thing happened.
Wow.
Did we just start without him?
Jesus.
Because, I'm gonna preface it by saying so Drew uses the website Ship a Dick more than any of us. I didn't even know what Ship a Dick was, but Drew sent out a whole bunch of Ship a Dick pint glasses with dicks all up in them to everybody before I was on the show, and then he used Ship a Dick again for Wes's birthday, and then this happened. Drew, are you back yet?
He took the dogs out.
Still taking the dogs out?
Yeah,
it was like the worst possible decision at that possible time. That
I
he
guess
made
so.
That. Like,
how many dogs does he have?
I think just one, two.
But it's really two? I thought there were two.
Well, dogs would imply that there's at least more than one, right?
Yeah, it definitely
All right.
says dogs.
God damn it, Tooch, man.
Sorry.
I can't believe I did that. I feel bad. Like,
really funny.
He's a minority.
For you.
He's a minority.
It happens like that sometimes.
He's not even in Discord right now. How did I miss that?
I don't know.
While we're waiting for him, let's tell him.
He got kicked out of church and Discord.
Yeah.
Andy has diabetes. Like,
Yeah.
talk about rolling that ones, man. For real.
Oh, he's gonna love
Talking about life
listening to this.
hating him.
Whoa, this is my husband you were talking about here.
I mean, Drew is a real man, though. Let's be real. Like reaching out to ship a dick like he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess I'll go ahead and I'll kind of steal his thunder here because we already started the show without him. But so Drew just out of the blue sent the people at Ship a Dick an email asking them to sponsor our show, and long story short, they said yes. So
we're in the works.
Yeah, so there's not really a monetary deal or anything like that. It's just we get to advertise for them on our show, and they're going to plug us on their social media. So it's a win-win.
It's a good trade.
It's a free trade. So
yeah,
and like
it's a funny trade.
It is
because
funny.
if there's anything we want cock-loving people to listen to our show. That is what I want.
More than anything,
Duh.
really. More than anything.
Now it's time to see what's up in the world of nerdy news.
First up, in some Star Wars news, Billy D. Williams is returning as Lando Calrissian, finally, for episode 9, I believe. After weeks of rumors and a next-gen star filling his shoes in Solo, a Star Wars story, the original Baron Administrator of Cloud City is heading back to the galaxy far, far away. Sources tell The Hollywood Reporter that Billy D. Williams will appear as Lando Calrissian in the yet-to-be-titled Star Wars Episode 9. And I guess that is about all.
Who's directing it?
I don't know. I don't think it's the lady, though. The lady that you don't
The
like.
lady that everybody hated.
Kathleen Kennedy, and then Rian Johnson or whatever the fuck.
I think he has. I think Ryan Johnson. I think he has his own trilogy planned. I don't know if it's him.
Kathleen Kennedy.
Oh yeah, that's who you're talking about.
Yeah.
This doesn't. Oh wait. Nope. Hold on. Oh shit. J.J. Abrams. Moving on to some more news. I don't have clever titles for this, but Jim Carrey will play Robotnik in Sonic the Hedgehog. I believe it's a live-action movie, so that's news too, right? According to Deadline sources, Jim Carrey is negotiating to star as Dr. Ivo Eggman Robotnik in the upcoming live-action CGI Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I don't know about that. From Paramount Pictures, Carrey notably joins stars James Marsden and Tika Sumpter in the Jeff Fowler directed film, which is currently scheduled to release next year in 2019. I had no idea they were doing that, but I mean, Jim Carrey's cool, right?
I love Jim Carrey. I'm a super Jim Carrey fan, but everything he's done in the past, how many years of releases, it's been not even rough. It's been horrible, and he should just continue sitting on the sidewalks of New York painting and
isn't he like a
acting.
huge book now?
Yeah,
A wook.
A book?
Sitting in the woods doing mushrooms and shit.
Oh, really?
What? Did you see him at Electric?
Yeah, he's got like a really big beard, and he's all like.
He's got a huge beard.
Yeah, he's pretty crazy now.
He draws
everybody
pictures
thinks
and stuff
crazy
now, right?
because
He paints?
Well, no, he's always done that. He's
Has
always
he?
been like artisty man, but everyone just thinks he's crazy. I think because he all of his interviews, and they're like,
because he is.
Blah blah blah. I think the youth called him woke.
The youth.
I don't fucking know. I don't call him woke. I totally get what you're saying, man. Like mental mind to mental mind. I get it.
Okay, well, I don't know how I feel about a live-action Sonic movie, but
yeah,
you know what? I don't know how you feel about the live-action fucking Winnie the Pooh movie that's coming out.
Yeah.
Oh, shut up! That looks great.
No, it doesn't. It looks horrible.
It looks
You should go.
amazing. It's got Obi-Wan Kenobi in it.
No, it looks so horrible and dumb.
Wait,
I hate
what?
it.
No.
You need to get woke.
Woke, yeah.
What movie?
The Winnie the Pooh
Winnie the
movie
Pooh.
or the Christopher Robin, whatever they're calling it. I don't know.
I think it's called Christopher Robin.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Looks horrible.
Did you watch the trailer for it?
Yeah, it looks horrible.
Next
You're
up.
right, I usually do.
Next up, in some more casting news, Warner Brothers' Joker Origins movie is now official, with Joaquin Phoenix signed on to play the Joker. In addition to a planned solo movie for Jared Leto's iteration of the Joker, we learned last year that Warner Brothers has also been developing a Joker origin story with Todd Phillips, who directed The Hangover, of all things, and the director's chair, and Joaquin Phoenix potentially on board to play the Clown Prince of Crime. Tonight, which was July 10th, THR reports that the project is officially a go. Phoenix has finalized a deal to play the Joker in the Phillips-directed origin story, with shooting set to begin in New York this coming September. Let's see here. The film will reportedly be made on a $55 million production budget, with it being described as a crime drama that will be, quote, darker and more experimental in tone and content. So,
well, as long as their experiment isn't Jared Leto again, I'll be.
Yeah, they're just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks with that character, man.
You know, we
like
talked about this before.
Phoenix, so I mean,
yeah, we talked about when it was rumored before. I don't remember what show it was a while back, but he's wouldn't be my first pick, but he's definitely not like bad. I don't think so, anyway.
Wait, who? Joaquin?
Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh.
That's who we're talking about.
Oh, we did bring him up, didn't we?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was like rumored a while ago, but now it's like official.
I still think that Willem Dafoe would be a better choice, but...
Oh, yeah.
You're just saying that because he's got a massive donger.
Moving on to some really fucking awesome news. This was 15 days ago. China says it has built a working laser gun, bringing us one step closer to a real-life BFG.
Yes.
The laser rifle is reportedly capable of carbonizing targets up to a kilometer away.
Fucking sign me up.
Dude, I saw that. That was actually super interesting. I'm surprised it took this long to get like a working prototype.
Did you see it? Did you see it work?
No, I didn't watch any video, but I read about it.
Lightsabers win, though. Am I right?
Yeah, we'll see. Lightsabers, I think, are a ways away. But let's see here. The article says lasers are a mainstay of shooters. From Star Wars Battlefront and Destiny to Doom and Wolfenstein, everybody loves a good laser gun, at least in video games. But according to Gizmodo, China loves laser guns the most. It's only gone and made one.
Of course they do.
The country's ZK-ZM 500 laser assault rifle, they're calling it an assault rifle already, okay, can result in instant carbonization of targets a kilometer away. Reports claim burning human skin and igniting flammable materials. Who the fuck did they have test it on human skin?
Wait, it actually does that?
That's what it says.
Maybe they just use like a grapefruit, like people
Population
do, like for
control.
tattoos and stuff. Oh yeah, China. So
Yeah.
Population control. Okay.
They donate
a female baby.
Speaking
or
of conspiracies, they donate every like third person or third kid from a couple that, you know, they're only allowed two, I think. So yeah, that was kind of dark. So yay science. That being said, we're not quite at BFG levels of laserdom just yet. An official report describes not yet. The official report describes the ZK-ZM 500 as a non-lethal anti-terrorism tool which could, in theory, temporarily disable targets in the event of a hostage situation. And from the sound of things, I reckon it would disable the shit out of them.
Wait, so like non-lethal will just burn your human skin?
I don't know.
Gives you a sunburn.
Because, yeah, it's like mildly
you have to
irritating.
have a skin graft. And
it makes you
whatever.
rethink your life decisions.
Shortly and we'll
Yeah,
know.
what's it gonna feel like? I want to know.
I mean,
You hear that? You hear that? Chinese government boots volunteers as tribute.
I want to sign up. I want to know what it feels like.
think about how many things are non-lethal but still hurt like a son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Yes, that's very true.
And because the gun is silent and its laser is invisible. Great.
Perfect.
Researchers believe it could also be used in covert military operations. Just in
fucking awesome.
Okay, well, enough with the laser shit. We're gonna go ahead and take a quick. We're gonna no, that's it. We're gonna take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to listen to a pre-recorded interview of me interviewing somebody from the Illuminati. I mean the Freemasons. So stick with us, and we'll be back in just a moment. Hey nerds, Wes here. Just wanted to give a quick rundown of some new things we've done for this season that you should definitely check out. First off, make sure to take a look at our newly redesigned website at www.tbdpod.com. And if you're already there, then great. Take a look at the show info where you'll find, you guessed it, info about the show. Things like episode archives, crew bios, how to join our Discord server, as well as ways you can subscribe to the podcast. Next, let me direct your attention to the Support the Show link where you can find some ideas on how you can help us keep the lights on. Help us out by buying some kick-ass coffee from Player One Coffee. Buy something from Amazon using our affiliate links, or hell, just treat yourself and us by becoming a TBD patron via our newly launched Patreon page. And as always, thanks for listening. Now, back to the show.
And now, we take you to an interview that was so controversial and conspiracy-y that it actually never took place. The following is a dramatization of how that interview probably would have sounded like, maybe.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. I just got to get my notes in front of me. Yep, this is Wes Tanner of the Basement Dwellers, and I'm here with a member of the Illuminati.
Cannot say the name, mortal.
Okay, no problem. First question. What level wizard do you have to be in order to make it into the Inner Council of Wizards?
Next question.
But what about...
Next question.
Fuck. What kinds of people normally join your cult?
It's not a cult. We are an organization.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Organization.
Anyone who finds themselves worthy may join.
Okay. What about lizard people?
What about them?
Well, I mean, there's some people out there who think that your organization has been infiltrated by a race of lizard people that seek nothing more than to take over the world and enslave mankind. I mean, what do you say to that?
No comment.
Okay, well, alright, man, I think that's about all I got, so, thanks, I guess.
No problem.
Yeah.
And thus concludes what that interview probably sounded like if it had taken place. Now back to the show.
And we're back, and we are going to dive right into the main topic of tonight, which is conspiracies and unexplained phenomenon. We're a little bit disorganized, but organized at the same time, so I guess that doesn't really make sense, but whatever. Drew, you're going to go ahead and go first, man. What do you got for us tonight?
All right, mine is really stupid.
Never mind. Drew's gonna go last.
No, it's dumb, and it's dumb in the way that I like dumb stuff. My funspiracy theory is Guy Fieri, Smash Mouth frontman Steve Harwell, ICP's Violent J, and possibly Uncle Cracker are the same person and or clones of each other.
Dude, all jokes aside, I've never seen that proof.
You've never what?
Never seen that proven wrong. I've never seen irrefutable proof that they are not all the same person.
Well, Guy Fieri...
There is proof that they are all not the same person, but there is not proof that they are all not clones of each other.
Oh.
Well, I've never seen it.
Ooh.
So.
Well, if you look at my profile picture on Discord, it is a picture of Guy Fieri and Steve Harwell together. So my first bit of proof for my conspiracy theory is they all rock the same look. A goatee and sideburns, blonde spiky hair, and a large, robust appearance. They also all wear pretty much the same clothing and like cargo shorts and button-down shirts. So they were all created and or born within like a 4-year period. Harwell was born in January of 1967. Fury was created a year later in January of 1968. And Violent J came around in April of 1972. From there, they all take their separate paths. Fury goes on to become a deep fry food, convertible driving, triple D finding god. Harwell to become the leader of the ska punk band Smash Mouth, and Violent J to the clown makeup, murder rap / wrestling and Fago loving performer that he is. Proof number 2.
I'm so happy you're doing
rearranging letters of their persons.
Yeah,
Harwell,
this is a good
Fieri,
icebreaker.
And Joseph Bruce produces the sentence, "Hereby we are clones." Jugfuls very fifth. Just ignore the last part. Next. They all have some very similar quotes here. Violent J says, "My last meal would be my mom's cheesy potatoes." Hell yeah. My mom makes the best meals on the fucking planet. Or the cheesy noodles. Either one of them is good, but I'm going with the cheesy noodles. Guy Fieri, Mac Daddy Mac and Cheese, and Smash Mouth. Somebody once told me the world was macaroni. If you notice, they all like cheesy pastas. The next thing that tied them all together is TGI Fridays. TGI Fridays is where Violent J met his wife. I walked in, and she was the hostess at a Fridays, sitting people down, and I was just like, "Damn, man." TGI Fridays continuously play a Smash Mouth song at all locations, 24 hours a day, even when the establishment is closed. And the crazy one, Guy Fieri, previously represented in the public eye, TGI Fridays. He was the spokesperson.
Wait, was he really?
Yes, he was.
Oh, damn. I didn't know that.
I think I remember
There's a
that.
commercial.
I didn't know that either.
And are any of them ever seen on the same date at the same time?
The only two that have been seen on the same day at the same time are Guy Fieri and Steve Harwell. And that's because they did do an episode of diners, drive-ins, and dives together.
I love
So like I said, those two may not be the same person, but they could be clones, and then they could be Violent J and Uncle Cracker out in public as their other personas.
Ooh.
Christ, it all makes so much
Wait,
sense.
Yeah.
Hold on. There's more. There's more.
I believe it. I believe every
Proof
word
number
of it.
5.
I want to
They have a common ability to summon exuberance centered primarily on throwing things. Okay, first one here. Smash Mouth singer freaks out when Food Fest crowd won't stop throwing bread at him. Guy Fieri causes some mayhem by throwing an autographed lean cuisine into a crowd of people. And as we all know, Juggalos are very fond of Faygo and spraying it all over their fans.
That's
true.
So, in closing, I leave you with this. This part is pulled directly from Ringer.com's article, A Unified Theory of Guy Fieri, the guy from Smash Mouth, and the guy from Insane Clown Posse being the same person and or clones. So, in closing, Fieri speaks often of his hunt for Flavortown, USA, a place of good eats, sure, but also one where, as Fieri promises on the website of Guy's American Kitchen and Bar in Times Square, visitors can be themselves. There's nothing like authentic, Guy's Kitchen enthuses. Nothing beats the real thing. If you squint, you can see something else in the years of denial about the trio's genetic destiny. A search for the truth about their shared identity. Guy's efforts to saturate the nation with comfort food then can be viewed as an attempt to bring his lost brothers together. As a wise clown once said, you just gotta stay true. Stay true and everything will be cool. The end.
Bravo.
The end.
Bravo.
Wow.
Dude, what if they're twins and they just dress up as Uncle Cracker and that
exactly. There's just so many possibilities. It may not all be clones of one person, but the two may be clones of the other two. It just blows your mind to think about it.
I just want to think that they all like refer to their cum as moon mist. So he's like, Guy Fieri's like, you're gonna find Flavortown, and I'm gonna spray my moon mist all over you, and then all that glitters is gold.
Gold member. It all makes sense. It always leads back to cock.
Okay.
Shipadick.com.
Yes.
Shipadick.com.
That's my favorite conspiracy theory of the night.
All right. All right. Yep. Okay. I'm
glad I brought some pleasure to the group there. To be
I'll have to dig into that one a bit.
Pleasure is a good word for it.
I'm just glad that you started on a the light note, because I feel like the rest of us are going to go into
I think.
No. But it was just like, the more and more I looked at it, the more and more I was like, man, this is just like dumb. And then I started doing this one, and I was like,
so you went with
this is so much more fun. I'm doing this one. This other one's all about the New World Order and one world religion. I'm like, nah, fuck that shit. We're going to talk about Guy Fieri because he's the best.
And it's so fitting.
We should get him to sponsor us.
Yeah.
We should.
Work on it, Drew. Work on it. Because apparently all we have to do is just ask. Okay, let's move on to Tucci. You got a good one lined up. This one's a bit more serious.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit more serious, and I'm almost 100% sure it's accurate, like true. So I'm not even sure it's really a conspiracy, and I feel like I'm cheating a little bit. But I was gonna do flat Earth, but like the whole flat Earth theory and stuff doesn't really interest me anymore because it's so goddamn bunk. It's ridiculous. So I was researching it. I was listening to videos and stuff about it, and I'm like, I cannot fucking handle this.
I can't do it.
Like, there's just so much wrong with all of this. So I moved on to the next best thing: predictive programming. Ooh. You are literally being shown the future in media. And it's basically a idea of the tool of the elites, the top of the top, the Illuminati. They put messages in media, so you can basically blame this on Hollywood if you want. I'm okay with that personally. So when it all boils down to it, there's a couple different instances that people talk about, like in The Simpsons. And that's one of the more known things is when there's a New York $9 brochure or something like that in The Simpsons, and the two World Trade Towers in the background of the brochure eerily make it look like it reads 911.
Oh.
So it's super weird. And there's a couple different references, like the pilot episode of the short-lived television series The Lone Gunman, which was actually created by Chris Carter of the X-Files fame.
Okay.
It aired on March 4th, 2001. It deals with a government conspiracy to fly a commercial jet into the World Trade Center. And so that was like months before it actually took place. For another subtle prediction of 9/11, seeing the opening credits of a miniseries called The 10th Kingdom, which first aired in February 2000. It shows New York City transforming into a world of fairy tales. And if you watch really close, you can see the World Trade Center towers falling vertically in the background. And so that was in February 2000, so about a year and a half before it took place. And there's just like so many examples you can find. Like, I think the farthest one back I found was something in like 1960 something, from a cartoon back then, and it's this yellow dog ranting and raving about how towers are falling. Granted, that's super ambiguous, so you can't really connect that 100%. But there are some really legitimate examples out there that honestly just make sense. And there's quite a few different conspiracies that or different like major events that happened that involve a lot of that. So it's basically like they're planting these ideas in your head so you're more okay with it when it happens.
Do you have any of those other examples?
Let me see if I can find any of them real quick.
Because I've actually heard a lot about the 9/11 stuff. You mentioned The Simpsons, and then there was the lone gunman.
Oh, the Boston Marathon.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So in Family Guy, has also been accused of broadcasting predictive programming. Most prominent is the episode Turban Cowboy, which aired on March 17th. 2013. In it, there's a cutaway gag during which Peter Griffin drives over Boston Marathon runners. Almost a month later to the day, on April 15th, 2013, is when the Boston Marathon bombing occurred. So people are saying that was like some sort of foreshadow.
Or maybe that's where they got the idea.
Or maybe that's where they got the idea, you know, and that could be totally accurate. Yeah. Also, the Titanic apparently was in some way alluded to. Published in 1898. This novella tells. It's called "Futility" or "The Wreck of the Titan," in which an ocean liner called the Titan, which hits an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sinks to its doom. And then, obviously, the Titanic happened like 14 years later. So, yeah, there's all kinds of different things that, I mean, I'm pretty convinced that at least some of it's accurate. Either that or we've got fucking time travel and people just haven't told us yet. So, I don't know. There's a lot of predictions out there, and my thing is, you know, always question what you're seeing, because sometimes there could be clues.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, if we had time travel, like, we might not even know about it because they would have it in the future, and they could come back and do all this shit, and it's still not even invented yet where we are right now.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well,
So
I think the theory of time travel is you can only go back so far as time travel has already been invented.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at least that's from my understanding. That's kind of the key thing with it.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that at all.
Watch the movie Predestination. It talks about that a lot. It's actually
Predestination?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Is it
got
on-
Ethan Hawke in it.
Is it on Netflix?
Why do I feel like I've seen
I don't know if it's on Netflix, but that's a damn good movie.
that?
I try not
I'm
to
raised-
torrent. My VPN ran out.
Yeah.
It's a really good movie that deals with time travel and the whole predestination paradox. It's really fascinating. So.
Time travel is like very headache inducing.
Quick interjection, it is on Netflix.
It is? Okay, cool.
It is, I just Googled it.
Peep that shit.
I shall have to.
I'm raising
good.
my hand over here for Tucci.
If we could see you, we would call on you. So
I know I am, like right here on my front porch here in Michigan. Tucci, can you see me? Like I know we're not supposed to get political or anything, but
Don't
do you?
Don't. Vaguely. Go ahead.
This is okay. It's very vaguely,
Uh-huh.
but do you think that with this? What did you? Okay, Ron. With this prediction of what did you call it?
Predictive programming.
Predictive programming. So do you think that the government and media work together in forms of maybe sending out some signals? Because I don't know, without getting too political. And talking about other conspiracies.
I think I know it. I know what you're getting at, and yeah, I think the media serves its purpose, but they're too effective to lead that thought to not cross somebody's mind. So you know what I mean?
I mean, they're way more effective, and the government knows that. So,
yeah,
do you think they're like, "Hey, here's a pat on the back for." Let's get the people ready.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, it'd be really hard to come up with proof one way or the other. I mean, because there's like a perfect cover of plausible deniability. The more we speculate about crazy shit happening, if it does actually happen, they can easily point to the conspiracy nuts and say that it's all just a conspiracy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with like aliens and any other kind of cover up. There's a lot of as a general overview of conspiracy-ness, I guess. I'm just gonna make up words tonight, but as a general overview of it, a lot of one big thing is misinformation, and a lot of it, I mean, they talk about it a lot, but a lot of it has to do with plausible deniability. Because if you leak out some fake information and it gets spread, but everyone starts talking about it, and then you get everyone turned against the conspiracy nuts, then you pretty much have like a green light to actually do what they're talking about. And then if anybody is like, "Hey, you're doing this," or like, "No, that's just some conspiracy nut shit," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's really easy to write those people off.
Yeah. Always blame the crazy people. There's many counts of people that are diagnosed with the illness. Hey, whatever, like I'm on your team. But that like because of maybe their paranoia or their like persecutory delusions, like had went and like made claims of 9/11 happening and everything before it happened. And nobody listened to them because they're just people and they're crazy. But who knows? Maybe they just watched The Simpsons and they thought it was really going to happen.
Well, there's a common trend with a lot of people who claim to be part of these conspiracies that they have some sort of mental illness or they were fed certain types of drugs. I mean, and who knows? I mean, it could be a side effect from the drugs, or it could just be the perfect cover for someone to get away with doing something horrible to someone. Because again, plausible deniability. Who are you going to believe? Me, the government agent, or the person who has been sent to the psych ward 7 times in their life? You know what I mean? So.
Clearly the government agent, duh.
No,
yeah.
The person who's been sent to the psych ward multiple times.
The government is our friend, you guys. Come on.
Discrediting. Discrediting works really well.
Yes, it does. Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go there with everything.
No, it's good commentary.
Yeah,
Tucci, we can talk about it later.
Is that going to be your pillow talk?
Pillow talk, yes.
Yeah, right after we get in role playing.
As long as I get to be the druid.
Yeah.
Tucci doesn't know how to role play in the bedroom anyway, so.
Callbacks.
Yeah.
Listen,
all right.
Listen to previous episodes for more information.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you dare.
For more of the showmance and the non-sex showmance that goes on.
Okay. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and we're on to Johnny next, man. You ready? You're going to talk about shadow people?
Yeah, shadow people.
All right, man. Lay it on.
Shadow people is actually something I've been interested in for a long time. Done my own independent research on this. Is something that I've like wanted to write papers about, because this shit's like super interesting, because it's something that's it's a phenomenon that's not specific to like the US and our culture. This is something that's been experienced from cultures all across the world, like countries that had no contact with each other at the time. Even like people have reported seeing these same exact things, in you got Russia in the 1500s. It started with this thing called the Hag syndrome. People would report like sleep paralysis with like a dash of asphyxiation, because they'd wake up and like be paralyzed, and then there would be a figure sitting on their chest. And it started, I want to say 1500s or 1400s, and Russia was the first reported example of it. And then since then, every countries in Europe, Asia, the Middle East, Americas, everywhere, people have reported seeing these shadowy figures that just kind of like pop in while they're mostly asleep. Like some people have. I was listening to an episode of Coast to Coast AM one time.
I love that show. Yes.
They got a paywall now though, so I don't listen.
I'll have to get my dad's account for you.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, email it to me, man.
Yeah.
But this lady comes on and she said that she had been seeing them not only regularly, but since she was a child, and that she felt that one was following her. Like she would see it like even in broad daylight walking to school, and it would like jump from shadow to shadow, which I'm almost inclined to believe she was making all that shit up, because that doesn't coincide with like anything else that I've read of people talking about them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, like it ties in a lot with sleep paralysis, which, I forget the actual number, but it's like something like 5% of Americans suffer from sleep paralysis. But
we were actually talking about this earlier today.
Yeah, we were actually.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was a little bit late, so I didn't get
no,
to
in our chat earlier today.
Yeah. So it's really interesting that you bring this up.
Oh, hell yeah, then. Where was I? Oh, yeah, sleep paralysis. So a lot of people will report, like a really common reporting of it is people will wake up in the middle of the night and they'll be frozen to their bed, a intense feeling of dread and despair and just like sheer terror. And then there's just this like really intense dark figure standing over them that doesn't have a definable shape. Like the edges aren't clearly drawn on something, you know what I mean? Like it's just like fuzzy. And just most of the time, this figure will just stand over them, watch them sleep for a little bit, no big deal. They'll wake up unharmed, uninjured, unbothered. But then occasionally you'll get reports of these figures attacking people, which is what ties it into old hag syndrome. Because old hag syndrome was a commonly reported thing, back in Russia centuries ago, where people would wake up and there'd be like a shadowy figure sitting on their chest so they couldn't breathe. And it's really weird to get into, because it's a really big gray area. There's a lot of speculation on what the actual cause of these figures are, because this is a widely reported paranormal phenomena. So like a lot of people, the general consensus of like what it is, the general theory is that there's a multiverse, and there's several dimensions, like a deck of cards. We're all happening at the same time, and that the shadow people are essentially two cards getting bent together, and you can kind of see little imprints of each other. But generally, they can't touch you, they can't hurt you. They're just kind of there, like they can see them, like you can, or they can see you, like you can see them. But what kind of tears away from that? There's been specific shadow people that have been reported being seen by several people, and they think it's the same one. One in particular is Fedora Man. Fedora Man's really interesting because he's been reportedly seen by people in several different countries, and it's just a guy, a male dressed in like 1920s, like kind of zoot suit era clothing, like broad shouldered suit, and a wide brim fedora hat, like the 20s music explosion there. And he's been reportedly seen, I think on like 3 different continents by a bunch of people. You know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I'm holding a baby, so I can't even tab over to the Wikipedia article I opened up on it to refresh myself. But so I always thought that was really interesting. Like sleep paralysis in general, yeah, it's really cool. But on top of that, like a interdimensional shadowy figure that like hovers over you while you sleep. Some people have reported they like beat the shit out of them while they sleep, and they'll like wake up with bruises and shit. But again, I haven't seen any definitive proof of that, so I can't really claim that that's something I believe in.
How terrified is your baby right now?
Oh, dude, he's chomping down intensely on my thumb. He's very upset.
He's not terrified of shadow people. He doesn't even know what that means.
Oh,
he doesn't even know what his own shadow is yet. So.
He's mostly scared of loud noises at this point. He's only 3 months.
I don't blame him. I'm still afraid of loud noises.
Dude, I took him to a theme park today, and like the roller coasters really threw. He didn't like that very much at all.
What were you gonna say, Nick?
I was gonna say I'm really glad you brought this one up because we were talking about this earlier today, and you know, that's something that I've experienced myself, and it's really fucking bizarre.
Have you really?
Yeah, the shadow people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking bizarre, dude, and it's terrifying and fascinating at the same time.
Yeah.
Especially like Ron, when we lived on Lewis Street, back
right down the road from me.
And then again, when I lived with my grandparents when I was older, you know, the shadow people in the corner of the room, like that, it freaks you the fuck out. But at the same time, I was really fascinated by what it was. I was like, I got to do some delving into this. So you bringing that up is actually really cool. And there's not a lot of research that's gone into it, like scientific.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I actually have.
Go ahead, Ron.
I was gonna say I've actually had regular episodes with sleep paralysis since we were kids too. So I mean, it's have now.
Yeah. So what I was going to ask is anybody aware of the actual like clinical diagnosis for sleep paralysis? Like what's that part? I mean, the shadow people, obviously, the medical field normally won't touch it.
Yeah, there really isn't one.
No,
there's not one. No.
They try to put a name on it, but then they just say, "Oh no, it's just your imagination," and that your mind is in between the REM cycle and like when you initially fall asleep.
Well, they lump it in with night terrors, don't they?
I think so. Yeah.
They call sleep paralysis night terrors. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the only explanation that I've ever heard of actual sleep paralysis, and again, no mention of the shadow people, but is and I'm probably I don't even know the technical jargon for this, but Boosie says something about like in between REM cycles to where like your body actually does like shut down as far as like your motor functions during certain cycles or certain sleep cycles that you have throughout the night.
Yeah, because it usually happens like when people are really like, as far as doctors can show, it happens. Sleep paralysis happens when people are really stressed out. So like your body is really tired and your mind will start to go into REM, but then your body is still kind of like active, or your mind is still kind of active. I don't know. So like you're in between, and all these things that happen within a matter of minutes, but it feels like forever when you're experiencing those sleep paralysis and like seeing these figures and all this creepy shit happen. Like it seems like it lasts forever, but really it's just like maybe tops 3 minutes,
Yeah, well, everything when you're sleeping seems like it's over in an instant, when really, I mean, I experienced that when my fiance's alarm goes off before mine, and then I'm like, oh sweet, I have like a half hour to sleep, and then I close my eyes, and then my alarm goes off. I'm like, what the fuck? Where did that go? Johnny, you had mentioned different cultures across different continents and everything. Is it the word incubus comes to my mind? Is that what they're what some people, is that where that came from? Like the person sitting on your chest, isn't that incubus, or is not succubus? But
I have no idea. I thought that was just like a kind of a subpar 90s
the band.
Yeah.
No, I think like the whole, well, I mean the band was named after the creature, but there was like I forget which culture called it that.
Russia called it old hag syndrome. That's what I always and my quote unquote research, just sitting here googling shit while having a beer, but that's what it always came back to, is old hag syndrome. But and again, my numbers could be off there. Like I opened a Wikipedia article, but I didn't even get a chance to scroll through it.
Well, so I was way off.
Feel free to double check my research there, but that's what I remember off the top of my head.
Based on that documentary I watched earlier this morning called The Nightmare, which is on Netflix, and it's all about people that experience sleep paralysis. There were multiple cases where people experienced a cat with red eyes sitting on their chest, which I think goes back to shit. Now I'm drunk and I don't remember, but it goes back to like some, ancient probably folklore or something. But whether it's that or it's like a shadow person that is on top of you, or multiple shadow people. I didn't even know there were multiple, because I've only ever experienced one.
Same.
So, but some people experience multiple, and it's weird because like they'll draw them out, and it's so similar to the things like that, I have seen and experienced.
I'm trying to like post a picture in the chat right now so you guys can see what I'm talking. This is the most famous image of it.
Oh yep.
Yeah.
No, I was actually just looking up what
the painting.
Incubus, which is I laughed because the first description of it is a male demon believed to have sexual intercourse with sleeping women, but then you keep going down, and incubus is also a cause of distress or anxiety, and it's also generally used to describe a nightmare. So it's like it kind of fits. But
there were even in that documentary I watched earlier today, like there's a woman that account of like a shadow figure that was having sex with her. And
cool.
So cool. But like, I don't know, just multiple. I mean, as far as like my encounters have gone, I've had a couple encounters with shadow people, and then I've also had an encounter of like spiders crawling up my wall, like they were gonna attack me, I guess. I don't know, just like terrifying. Not going to attack me, but just like crawling up like where the head of my bed is, just like huge fucking spiders. But I think the scariest was my last episode of sleep paralysis, because, and I think I was telling Johnny about this yesterday or the other day, but so my sister's former fiance passed away last August, almost a year ago, and I was having sleep paralysis where at the foot of my bed, like a figure that looked like him appeared, and it was very calming and like comfortable at first, and then all of a sudden it turned into this shadowy figure of like somebody wearing like draped clothing, like long fingers, and just like the overwhelming fear of dread and discomfort and fear.
You might have seen a shadow people.
Well, I think I've seen a couple shadow people.
Yeah, I've never experienced sleep paralysis before, and but
it's terrifying.
My fiance does from time to time, and I always get woken up after she comes out of it. So I know how much it scares her, and she's usually a wreck for the rest of the night, depending on when it happens. I mean, I'm still like half asleep during all of it, but yeah, I can't even imagine, like, for as active of an imagination that I have, I can honestly say that I have never seen anything weird. I mean, nothing paranormal or anything like that. I don't know.
I've had a paranormal experience, but it wasn't with the shadow person.
Hold on to that thought, because we're gonna go ahead and take another commercial break, our last one, and then we're gonna go through the last half of this stuff before we wrap it up. So, everyone out there, hope you are thoroughly creeped the fuck out like the rest of us. And no. And just stick with us.
Normal.
Hang in there, and we'll be back in just a minute here. Do you like role-playing games? How about podcasts? How about a podcast about a role-playing game? Check out our friends at Tomorrow's End, a podcast that follows a role-playing group as they navigate through a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Alright, enough fucking words. Here's the trailer.
How did humanity get here? I just can't remember. The rest of the world didn't know why the end had come. They'd heard on the radio about an attack on the states by either Russia or China over dwindling resources. What we knew was that the world was going to end, and a crazy man named Morrow had a plan to save the world. Many teams were frozen in vaults deep underground, safely tucked away from all the bombs and nukes flying, and the asteroid that would finally end everything. They were supposed to wake up 25 years later and help pick up the pieces, but something went wrong, and everyone woke up a lot later, if they woke up at all. Cultists, criminals, madmen, they've been living and thriving through the radiation and destruction the entire time. Some good people also survived. They held on to hope by spreading stories about tomorrow's end.
And we are back again, and we're going to finish up the last half of this show. Well, last half of this section here. We're going to start off with Ron's conspiracy, man. What do you got for us tonight?
Well, mine is actually a couple different ones, and it's going to be it's cartoon conspiracies, theories and fan theories that people have come up with. I did find like 10 that were really kind of fun and interesting, and then there are a few dark ones. So I'm going to start with the like more lighthearted ones. Just going to give like a kind of a like quick overview, and then if you guys want to chime in but yeah, I'm going to do like the lighter ones first, and then I'll go into the darker ones. Okay. The first one I found that I thought was kind of fun was the SpongeBob SquarePants nuclear testing theory.
I've heard that one.
So if you know where SpongeBob's from, Bikini Bottom. Well, in real life, back in like the 40s and 50s, they used to do nuclear arms testing at the Bikini Atoll. So the theory is that SpongeBob exists because of nuclear radiation.
Makes sense.
That does make sense.
Was that also why he light fire underwater?
That's exactly why. There's all sorts of weird radiation in the water. Let's see. Next one was the Dexter's Lab theory. Anybody watch Dexter's Lab?
Oh, hell yeah.
Love Dexter's Lab. It's laboratory.
I think we all did.
Laboratory.
Yeah. Well, the only thing about this is that it doesn't really exist. It's all his imagination. The theory is that Dexter is so socially awkward and introverted that he relies heavily on his imagination. His rivals were actually his friends with similarly huge imaginations, and when they played together, the usual fantastic Dexter's Lab shenanigans would ensue. Another thing that kind of gave away his imagination was the accent. The rest of his family does not have an accent.
It's true.
Wait, dude, are you gonna get to the Rugrats? Is that on your list?
That's at the bottom of my list. That's the darkest one.
Sorry. Carry on.
Ruined.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Spoiler alert.
That's a good one, spoiler alert, but it's fine. So the next one, I wouldn't say it's a conspiracy. It's just kind of sad if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's Courage the Cowardly Dog Nowhere theory. So, Courage, the theory is that Courage is actually just a dog. The villains that he see in the show are just normal people, but to a little dog, they seem scary. They don't actually live in the middle of the nowhere because they're old and can't take him outside for walks. So he only knows his immediate surroundings on the property. So everything beyond that is nothing.
I never actually watched that show.
I didn't either. That poor dog, though. It sounds like Toy Story.
It's a great show. It honestly, though, I've got to say, I don't think that's a show for kids.
Of course, that's something that you would.
No, Courage is fucked up.
Yeah, like I watched it as a child in the 90s because the 90s was the tits.
If you think about it from his perspective as a normal dog, that is some scary shit, you know?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That makes sense.
Well, it been inside that house.
It was a really dark show too. There was a lot of really dark imagery. There was a lot of really dark artists, like art in that show. Like even the animation was really grotesque and dark. It was good.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of 90s, I mean, obviously that's kind of what we're talking about, but like a lot of the cartoons were really dark. I don't know what kind
Ren
of
and
cartoons
Stimpy?
show these days. Yeah, well, that was just fucking
goofy fun.
Yeah,
you could get away with that shit back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rocco's
Cat
Modern
Dog.
Life.
Nowadays, all the cartoons look the exact same, and they're all PG and like.
Yeah. All right, Ron. What's the next one?
All right, I got two more. The next one starts getting a little bit darker, but this is the Garfield hallucination theory. So,
I don't think I've
in
heard
this
that one.
theory, John and Odie don't actually exist. Garfield is actually dying of starvation and imagining John and Odie.
Oh my god!
And I looked. I saw this one and I looked it up. There's actually a Halloween themed comic that came out. Oh god, I want to say early '90s, like before the cartoon really took off. But where Garfield wakes up in a condemned and abandoned house. He calls out for Odie and John, but there's no answer. He then wills the illusion back on himself and continues his delusion about his quote unquote family.
Good lord.
That's depressing.
That is really depressing.
That's really fucking.
The comic is like maybe 10 panels long and it's upsetting.
Wait, they actually made that? Wow.
Yeah, it was a comic strip.
God damn. It actually like
Won't look at
adds
that
some
way the same anymore.
legitimacy to that claim.
Jesus.
So for my last one, this is probably the worst one, but I'm gonna sum it up as best I can. Because if you actually read the full theory, it's a lot longer and goes into Rugrats All Grown Up too.
Oh.
So the theory.
Prepare to have your childhood ruined.
This is really good shit. I've looked into this also.
I'm gonna ruin your child just with the name of the theory.
It's actually
Ruined.
really good, yeah.
It's called the dead baby theory.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's fucked, dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the theory is that the Rugrats were really just a figment of Angelica's imagination. That Chucky actually died a long time ago, along with his mother, and that's why Chaz is a nervous wreck all the time. It says that Tommy was a stillborn. That's why Stu is constantly in the basement making toys for the son who never had a chance to live. It goes on. The DeVilles had an abortion. Well, Angelica couldn't figure out whether it was a boy or a girl, thus creating the twins.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's dark, dude.
It's nuts.
Completely fucked.
Well, this whole theory it kind of explains why Angelica can both speak to the adults and the babies.
Who did that? Who did this?
Who hurt you?
Check this out, though. I'm not going to go too much farther into it, but there's actually more where they talk about how, like, the original Rugrats is just a hallucination, like, completely, like, because of, like, Rugrats All Grown Up, like, Angelica is actually, like, a drug addict.
Oh my god.
So she's, like, using drugs to remember these babies that never existed.
Jesus Christ.
She would
Yeah.
be. She's a complete asshole.
Oh my god. And here I thought we were gonna like shed a little like light after all the scary shadow monster and stuff like that.
Oh, no.
So.
Oh no! I did the light stuff.
Oh Jesus!
No, but even like to go on with Rugrats, like I think that a lot of the reasons why, because I was a big Rugrats fan as a kid, right? You know, I loved my Rugrats, and I loved that was like the only cartoon I really fucking loved. But then
now it's ruined.
But then they created in the Rugrats movie, like the first one. I think they made multiple, but in the first one, like the Pickles were having a baby, Dill.
Dill. Yeah, they talked about this too.
Yeah. So it's like, all right, Tommy gets a little brother, and then they also, I think they bring in their maybe Chaz starts dating. I don't remember all of it. I don't remember that movie. I just watched it.
I think he did try to date. I haven't seen that since I was a kid either. But yeah,
that was when they went to Paris.
Yeah.
There's
that French chick.
So that was like after that one. Yeah. Okay.
Who was Asian for some reason.
Right. Yeah. She was Asian. Yeah.
Kira.
So you have something on Dill too? Like someone ruined Dill too? Like he's not like the one that made it.
He actually is the one that made it.
He is the one that made it. Okay.
Okay, so this is an article I got from the Creepypasta Wiki. The only Rugrat not to be fictional, however, was unborn Tommy's brother Dill. However, Angelica didn't know the difference between Dill and her creations, although Dill didn't follow her commands. So that's one of the differences. After endless crying and a refusal to disappear like the others did when Angelica was angry with them, she hit him. Due to this, he sustained a brain hemorrhage.
Oh my god!
In a deformation. If you look at his head, it's kind of jacked up, right? He grew
they all
up,
had fucked up heads, but
as he grew up, his damage only became more evident, and by the time he was 9 and all grown up, he lived as an outcast, being ridiculed for his weirdness and retardation. The immense guilt over this is what led Angelica to her drug use.
Holy shit.
Yeah, there's like
what
a
about
whole big thing about it, and there's even more, but
so talking about how like there's no real Rugrats character except for Angelica, blah blah blah. What about her friend, who's not really her friend, but Susie Carmichael? You know,
Susie,
our token gal.
Let's see. Susie was actually Angelica's only friend who entertained the thought of Angelica's creations for her sake. Angelica spent the last days of her life in the back of the school cafeteria, imagining friends around her and playing with the lives of her creations. So Susie was real. She just kind of enabled.
Goddamn, dude.
Good.
Susie was just a really great friend.
God.
You're welcome.
Susie is the kind of friend that I need in my life.
Well, that's
like,
a good way to bring the show back for the second part. All right. Anything else to add to that, Ron? I mean,
no, I like to end on that note.
Can you destroy our childhood anymore?
Yeah, Ed and Eddie, they're all dead too.
I mean, you could probably destroy it more,
I
but I
wasn't
don't
going
want
to talk about that one, but yeah. Or the Powerpuff Girls have multiple personalities.
Just stop.
Or there's
for the love of God.
Hey Arnold watched the Birdman commit suicide.
Oh yeah.
Or that Hey Arnold's grandparents are actually his parents.
Oh man,
dude, you guys should look into like the weird shit they found in the background too. There's a lot of screenshots of like weird shit happening in the background, like in the windows and shit while they're walking.
Of what?
New York. Someone's getting their ass ate for
wait, what? What?
Wonderful.
No, in what?
No, there is so many hidden gems in Hey Arnold. It's outrageous.
Hey Arnold. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I'm going back and watching it.
But also for the listener, definitely look into the rabbit hole that is the rats, because there is like so much bizarre shit, like the fan theories and like the creepypasta theories, like all that shit. There's like Reddit threads. Check the Reddit threads, man, because there are so many different lore theories on Rugrats. It's wild.
Jesus.
And if you want to use it to like ruin your childhood,
yeah, I mean,
look
get ready for
into
that.
look into why the never-ending story is actually a psychological horror.
Oh, I saw that the other day.
I've never actually seen that movie, so I can't comment.
Oh my gosh!
Really?
I'll have to watch that at some point.
All right, guys, we got three more theories to go through here, and Boots, I realized I realized I skipped over you, Boots. So we're gonna
That's okay.
It's all right. We're gonna go to you next, and then we got Tracy, and then I'm gonna end it on mine. So
real quick before that happens, I'm gonna dip out. I got a teething baby, so I'm gonna take off for the night.
Okay, man.
So, you guys, thank you for having me on.
Hey, man, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
You're part of our chat, so I'm sorry.
Next time, anytime you need somebody to fill in, let me know.
All right, man.
We'll try to pull you in.
All right, have a good night.
Right.
We'll see you.
Thanks again. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
I'm gonna try to power through what notes I have, but like
I'm good on battery, so if you want to tag team it,
yeah, I was gonna say, like, Nick and I are kind of talking during the break how we should have probably tag teamed this because
go for
I
it.
am going to be talking about excuse me. Dyatlov Pass. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Dyatlov. So basically, I just started out my notes with like a who, where, when, how, what the fuck. So where this entire thing took place was in the Ural Mountains in Soviet Union, which is now Russia, and it happened between February 1st and 2nd in 1959. There were 9 skiers / hikers who were found dead. What happened was, who kind of knows, but they fled their campsite in the middle of the night due to something that kind of chased them out and made them flee the scene. So it was kind of overview, like determined that 6 people had died from hypothermia and that the other 3 had signs of physical trauma, 1 being a fractured skull and 2 had major chest fractures. The investigation concluded that the cause of their death was an unknown compelling force. There's numerous theories, which I'm not going to get into tonight because it could go on and on, but the numerous theories that led to this happening are animal attacks, hypothermia, an avalanche, infrasound-induced panic, military involvement, or a combination of all of any of those. So after their bodies were found, blah blah blah, they only closed the territory for 3 years following the incident, and then they opened it up again to more hikers and excursionists, blah blah blah. So it all starts with this guy. I don't know if it's Igor. I'm gonna call him Igor, but it's probably not.
Yeah, it's
Igor
Dyatlov.
Yeah, Igor Dyatlov. So he was the group leader, and he set up this group of 8 men and 2 women who were all experienced skiers and hikers, and they were actually going on this trek to earn their like grade 3 experience, I guess, of expeditionism. I don't know which is the highest skill. Anyway, so they began trekking on like January 27th of 1959. On January 28th, one of the dudes had turned back because he had health issues. So that's how they only ended up with 9 of them continuing on. So Igor agreed to send a telegram back to like the sports club where they like had all met each other when they returned back to their starting point, and they were expected to return no later than February 12th. However, Igor told the first guy that had to turn around that it might be a little longer, but then it took way longer, and due to that, like people's like families of the other travelers started to get worried, and they demanded a rescue operation on February 20th. And so following that rescue operation, first like volunteers and shit went out and didn't find anything. And so then they brought in like the military and yada, yada, yada. So they found a camp, and the diaries and cameras from the group on the trek showed like the path that they were taking, and showed that like due to like the weathering conditions, they ended up camping like a little over 6 miles from where their actual destination was. But when they found the campsite, they found they found the abandoned tent. It was damaged, and the person who found it said the tent was half torn down and covered with snow. It was empty, and all the group's belongings and shoes had been left behind. They said that the tent was cut open from the inside. So the searchers followed tracks of 8 or 9 footprints until they were covered with snow. They followed them as much as they could until they got to like a forest edge, which was about 1,600 feet from the tent, and they found the remains of a small fire and 2 bodies that were solely in underwear, and they were barefoot. And then later on, while searching between the pine tree where they first found the 2 bodies and the campsite, they found 3 more corpses, suggesting that they were trying to head back to camp. So that was in February that they found the first 5 bodies. And then it took them 2 more months to find the other 4 bodies. They were found in a ravine that was approximately 82 yards further into the forest from the pine where the first 2 bodies were found, and they were covered in about 13 feet of snow. And the last 4 bodies found were better dressed than the others, and 2 were wearing garments from the previous expeditioners' bodies who had been found. So the first 5 bodies that were found, the medical examiner found that there were no injuries, and like it was concluded that they died of hypothermia. The last 4 bodies that were found in May, I think it was concluded that 1 had hypothermia, but 3 had fatal injuries. 1 which was a major skull fracture, and 2 had major chest fractures. They said that the force to cause this kind of internal damage would be comparable to a car crash, yet none of the bodies had external wounds relating to the internal fractures. So they said maybe it was subjective to a high level of pressure. One of the 3 that had, well, actually it was like one of the 2 that had a major chest fracture. She was found with a missing tongue, eyes, part of her lips, and facial tissue, and a fragment of her skull bone. And then she also had maceration on her hands, but she was found in like a shallow. Medical studies said that the injuries of the 3 that had all the major internal fractures could have not been caused by a human being.
So what's really interesting about this whole story is how little is actually known, because you're talking about 9 experienced hikers. I mean, they're not people who are just going out here on a mountain on a whim. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, they were going
before.
That was something. It was like grade 2. They were going on this expedition to actually read to reach the highest skill level, which is grade 3, which is the mountain they were climbing.
So they know all the precautions and all the dangers that fall when it comes to mountain climbing. And I mean, they're experienced, they're old enough to know better, and they go up to pretty much the peak of this mountain. I believe it was called Dead Mountain is what they called it. And they get to the peak of it, and that's when all the trouble ensues. And I'm just kind of like going over what a couple of key points Lauren said, but what's really weird is how little is known and the circumstances that followed their deaths. You know, why did they get up in the middle of the night in February during a blizzard, and why did they knife their way from the inside out? Like, what caused them to panic that much?
They didn't just open their tent, they cut themselves out and left in a panic where some of them were only in their underwear and barefoot.
And a couple of things that she left out was well, you talked about the eye gouging and the tongue thing, but when they got out of their tents, they didn't run. Like, they weren't panicked. There was like footprints.
No, it was footprints.
Yeah, and like that would indicate that they just walked from their tents to out in the woods in the middle of nowhere in nothing but like their underwear and maybe like their long johns. Why would they do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's just bizarre. Like, the whole case is really odd. And so there's a lot of theories, but
there's a ton of theories.
Yeah, you know, that reminds me, like, the strangeness of that one. Well, the strangeness of that case there reminds me of the one that I talked about the last show that we did this with all the missing 411. David Politis, if you guys get a chance to look him up, all of his research is so similar to that kind of stuff, except they all share those like the characteristics of, I mean, not what Boots is talking about, but they're all similar in that regard as far as really unexplained shit that happens to these people that there's still no explanation for, but there are so many cases that are similar to it. Yeah, so anything else you wanted to add to that one before we move on?
No, because I feel like I could just go on forever, like, talking about different theories and like try to come up with my own, but I won't.
It's a really bizarre case that's probably going to like go unsolved forever.
Well, you said it was from the 50s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's 1959.
I kind of hope it does, honestly. Like, I kind of hope that's one of those stories that just kind of goes down in history as one of the mysteries.
Yeah.
It makes it more interesting for me to not know.
Okay. Tracy, you still awake?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and move on to yours. What do you have for us?
So, I spent all day researching Plum Island, and Plum Island it's a small island off of the coast of Long Island, New York, and basically there's a big like animal disease research facility there, and it's been there since I'm gonna like totally get most of the dates wrong because my memory is just complete shit, but it's been active since I think the 1950s. Originally it was like some kind of like army base that they turned into a research facility.
Mm-hmm.
And the Department of Agriculture originally owned it, but then it got turned over to the Department of Defense, which is really weird. So the director guy is this guy named Eric Taub, and they have connected him to Hitler, actually.
Huh.
And yeah, and so what he was trying to do was he was trying to weaponize like foot and mouth disease, which yeah. So okay, yeah, let's take the guy who's trying to like, you know, weaponize diseases and let's put him in charge of the facility because there's a good idea, right? And Plum Island is basically like, if you know anything about the Mantok monster, I think I'm saying that right. That's where they believe that this came from. And like if you like Google the pictures, basically it's like this really weird creature looking thing that has like a beak or something, and but it's got like the body of like a mammal. And so a lot of the conspiracies is they don't just do like, you know, trying to cure and eradicate diseases there, that they are also basically doing like genetic research.
Okay.
And they've had I'm sorry, what?
I was gonna say, is it kind of like Island of Dr. Moreau type stuff?
Yeah,
Okay.
basically. Yeah.
That was creepy.
And there's a ton of like really weird, creepy stuff surrounding this place. And they've had like supposed like experts look at this thing and go, oh no, it's a raccoon, it's just in like a severe state of composition. Well, you know, I looked at those pictures and that does not look like a raccoon. It honestly doesn't.
You ever find it funny, as a quick note, do you ever find it funny that like whenever there's these people like trying to describe a creature, there's always some idiot who's out there being like, oh, it was just a bear, or it was like, it's like something not even close to what this thing looks like.
Sasquatch.
Right.
Yeah. You know, like in the movies, what was I just watching? Lake Placid. Like they got like the body.
Of course you were.
Yeah, like the dude, the diver, gets bit in half by the crocodile, and then some dude back at the station was like, it was a bear attack or some shit like that. It was
right.
You know, that's what it reminded me of.
Because bears spend a lot of time underwater.
Yeah, just stuff that doesn't even make sense. Sorry, go ahead though.
Back in what was it, 1992, I believe, is when they had the first outbreak of Lyme disease, actually, which was only a few miles away from Plum Island in Queens, actually.
Okay.
And they have found some connections between Plum Island and Lyme disease. They've also found some connections with West Nile, swine flu, and some weird Dutch duck disease or something that I've never heard of. They found some connections that they believe has all came from this island. Now, in 1992, they also had a really big strike, and one of the disgruntled employees that used to work there actually blew the whistle and came out and said, "Hey, look, their safety practices they're horrible. Their security is lacking." They said, you know, no wonder things have gotten out, because this stuff is shit. Their security is horrible. Somebody could very easily like walk in and out of there with something. Not to mention the fact that they were like sealing up like ducks and stuff with duct tape. Yeah, and just a whole bunch of like other like just safety violations, stuff like that. And so they also connected it with the back in England when they had like that really bad outbreak of foot and mouth disease that like killed like a crap ton of cattle. So they believe that this Eric Taub guy basically was using England as ground zero for testing of his new weaponized disease that he had basically made. And it cost them like $500 billion. Yeah.
So was that a government-funded project? Is that what you said, or?
Yeah, it's government funded. They get like $16.5 million a year that they dump into this place.
I guess that's not a lot of money comparatively, but still, that's weird.
Right.
Jeez. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, that I'd have to look it up again, but I can't remember if that's yearly or monthly.
So this place is still up and running?
Oh yeah. And there are people that they want it shut down.
Yeah.
And they're saying, well, we're not going to shut it down. We're just going to, build a fancy new building and just, move it somewhere else so it can be safer.
Oh, gotcha. All right.
Yeah. But I think it was in 2010 they found an actual, they say they found like a human body that was like really elongated, like elongated fingers and stuff like that. And it had, they said that they had brain trauma consistent with like surgery. So there's like some conspiracy theories out there that they're not only testing on animals, they are testing on humans as well. Yeah. But they found there's been like sheep that have actually like washed up on the shore of like New York with these really weird, just like gaping hole type wounds. And I mean, sheep just don't normally like wash up on the shore. Well, they've tracked the currents and they've proved that it came from Plum Island. So if that doesn't scare the pants off you.
Yeah.
I mean, because I mean, obviously there's stuff that's been getting off of this island, contagious stuff. I mean, they've connected it to West Nile. They've connected it to Lyme disease. There's actually some that they believe that that's initially where AIDS came from. So I mean, this place has been up and running, since like the 1950s. Yeah, they believe that they basically created AIDS there. Mm-hmm. That's how the monkeys got infected, and then to basically cover everything up, then they sent these monkeys back out to Africa. And that's when people started getting infected. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Drew. Have a good night, man. We know you got to get to work.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying not to interrupt. But it's been fun. I'll see you guys later.
See you, dude.
See you, Drew.
Bye.
So that reminds me of something that my dad once told me. Because we, every once in a while we'll get drunk and just kind of bullshit about stuff that there's no proof of, but it's kind of fun to think about. And I forget what it was. Couple years back when what was it? The swine flu? Was it H1? I don't remember what it's called, but
H1N1.
H1N1. Yeah. When the swine flu was there, and my dad came up with, or he he's like, what if? He's like, what if? Because every couple of years we have these disease scares that maybe kill a couple people. I don't remember what the actual death toll was for that, and I might be completely misrepresenting the numbers, but it was only comparative to the entire U.S. population. It was not a huge percentage of people who died from it. A lot of people got it, but not a lot of people died from it. But we don't really hear much about it anymore. Like my dad was kind of just spitballing. He's like, what if there's someone out there who's releasing these diseases to test the United States reaction to them as kind of like a preparatory type deal. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, biological
and that's a conspiracy. That's a conspiracy in itself. But it's just kind of fun. It's terrifying to think of. But
Yeah. Well, they did catch a woman. She was a neuroscientist, I believe, that worked there. That they found out she had ties to Al Qaeda and was planning on blowing the building up.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah. Right.
God. Well, that's cool. That's one way to do it, I guess. Anything else you wanted to add to that? Well, you got it in your memory, in memory palace.
I think I pretty much covered everything other than Well, I don't understand. I can understand it being funded and given to basically the Department of Agriculture. But why did they hand it over to the Department of Defense? That I don't understand. Like, I'm sure their reasoning, if they think like biological warfare is going to become a thing.
Yeah.
And so they're looking for that kind of disaster, or if there's another reason behind it, it's.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, I mean, they were doing research on animals too. And, you know, depending on what type of animal, I mean, that's kind of a big food source of ours.
Well, yeah, they wipe one food source out. I mean, that could topple a government really easily.
Yeah, depending on like the chain or whatever, or the food chain. But so I can see like the defense maybe being interested in like taking over some research that would deal with potential attacks, you know. Who knows if you know if they would actually happen, but I mean that's kind of their job to look at what could happen and how they can defend against it. So maybe that was part of it. I'm not sure, but maybe. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna go for a couple minutes here. I got one little conspiracy unexplained thing to talk about. And this kind of ties into some nerdy shit, and especially a show that we are all pretty much fans of on this show. So I'm going to talk about Project Montauk. And to get this out of the way, what I'm going to read tonight has been taken both from Wikipedia as well as an article from The Sun. So Wikipedia says that the Montauk Project is an alleged series of secret United States government projects conducted at Camp Hero or Montauk Air Force Station on Montauk, Long Island. Speaking of Long Island, that was funny that Plum Island is right around there too. It was crazy shit happened in Long Island, guys.
Yeah.
This was for the purposes of developing psychological warfare techniques and exotic research, including time travel. Stories about the Montauk Project have circulated since the early 1980s. According to UFO researcher Jacques Vallée, the Montauk experiment stories seem to have originated with the account of a man named Preston Nichols, who has claimed that he's recovering from repressed memories of his own involvement in those experiments. Nichols was born in 1946 on Long Island, New York, claims to have degrees in parapsychology, psychology, and electrical engineering. He has authored a series of books known as the Montauk Project series, along with a man named Peter Moon, the primary topic of which is the alleged activities at Montauk. That's a lot of Montauk talk. All these books center on topics including United States government / military experiments in fields such as time travel, teleportation, mind control, contact with alien life, and staging faked Apollo moon landings. They are framed as developments which followed a successful 1943 Philadelphia experiment, and they culminate in a, quote, a hole ripped in space and time in 1983. The authors, of course, have encouraged speculation about the contents. For example, in their book, they write, whether you read this as science fiction or nonfiction, you are in for an amazing story. In their first chapter, describing much of the content as soft facts, in a guide for readers and publishing along with it a newsletter with updates to the story as they come. Since the 70s, tall tales have surrounded the derelict facility in Long Island, New York. And yes, this is a real place. Most concern the U.S. government's top secret Montauk Project, which at its heart involved kidnapping kids and using them in mind control experiments, time travel, psychic brainwashing, aliens, and as well as conjuring a petrifying otherworldly beast. And if all of that sounds familiar, then you like the same kind of shit that we do, because we're all fans of the Netflix series Stranger Things, and that show was actually based on and inspired by the experiments that allegedly took place in Montauk. In fact, the working title for Stranger Things was at one time actually Montauk, but later it was changed, with the entire setting being moved from the Long Island location to the fictional town of Hawkins, Indiana, as seen in the series. Both the creators of Stranger Things, Matt and Ross Duffer, have yet to this day still declined to explain why they made that change. That could just, take that as you will.
I like it.
Yeah, the first season of Stranger Things centered on a missing boy trapped in another dimension, a powerful psychic girl called 11 who escapes from a secret government research lab, and dark experiments which unleash a terrifying monster that stalks the town. All of it sounds a bit crazy, but those are all things that were taken directly from real-life reports surrounding the Montauk Project. And then... what I have here is an article from The Sun. Bear with me. Once I read it, we can talk about it here. But Preston Nichols from Long Island claims he was an electrical engineer in Montauk in the early 80s. He said, quote, "I found myself on this screwball project, which became known as the Montauk Project. We began to look at how you could interface minds with computer systems, and the idea that you could fly a fighter plane by purely thought. But it soon evolved into developing a mind control device. They wanted to flip a switch and have everyone respond to a computer program. While they never found a signal that worked universally, they were able to target individuals very well. Later, it was discovered that if the individual whose mind was powering the machine could think of other time periods, the machine could generate a vortex there, essentially a time machine. It is claimed that the Montauk Project grew out of the Philadelphia experiment in 1943, which allegedly was used to make the U.S. Navy destroyer USS Eldridge invisible to German radar. But conspiracy theorists say that the ship temporarily vanished into a different dimension or time, along with its crew, who later reportedly suffered psychological damaging effects. Afterwards, it is claimed experiments into the use of electromagnetic forces continued at the government's energy lab Brookhaven in Long Island, once again. In his 1992 book, Montauk Project Experiments in Time, Preston claims that Congress became wary of developing mind control techniques and shut down the research. Yet, at that time, the military took up the project and allowed scientists to shift their sensitive work to the then defunct Camp Hero, which is also on the same island. Preston said, "What better place to disguise a Black Ops secret project than a disused base at the tip of a peninsula, which had always been disguised as a fishing village." Crucially, the former base had an obsolete SAGE radar tower, which broadcast the frequency needed to affect human consciousness. So basically what they would do is they would take these signals and they would broadcast them over the surrounding populations and use them to affect like their behavior. Let's see here. They were testing on the locals. He tells stories of how 2-hour crime waves would be triggered, or teenagers were prompted to congregate. Other signals cause animals to charge into town or shut down car electronics completely. Most sinister of the experiments, however, was the Montauk chair, which I believe is in Stranger Things. The thing that 11 sits in, where she's like, I forget what she's trying to do. It's been a while since I've watched that season. Essentially, it's a mind-reading device. Preston says he operated it, often working with a psychic called Duncan Cameron. He said the computer would produce a digital representation of what the person in the chair was thinking about. He then claimed the subject could think of a solid object and the transmitter would make it appear on the base from the ether, sometimes solid and at other times transparent. Another experiment, the Seeing Eye, involved Duncan clutching a lock of someone's hair or a personal belonging, concentrating on them and claiming to be able to see through their eyes, hear through their ears, and feel through their body. A remarkably similar experiment is formed on the kidnapped girl 11 in Stranger Things. Preston said of Duncan's powerful abilities, quote, "He could actually see through other people anywhere on the planet." Preston then claims these mind-bending feats eventually led to the ability to create portals in time and to journey to other eras and other dimensions, as well as to Mars. He wrote, "Those who traveled through the vortex described it as a peculiar spiral tunnel that was lit all the way down. As one started to walk down, he would suddenly be pulled through it. It propelled one out the other end, usually in another place." Sounds like the Stargate tunnel. He added, "I was considered too valuable to the technical operation and was not allowed to travel through the portal." Preston claims the project was halted when Duncan unleashed a monster through the machine, again, much like 11 does. He wrote, Duncan let loose a monster from his subconscious, and the transmitter actually portrayed a hairy monster. It was big, hairy, and nasty. It showed up somewhere on the base. It would eat everything it could find and smashed everything in sight. Preston claims that he was then ordered to smash the equipment that powered the Montauk chair in an attempt to destroy the beast. Employees were subsequently brainwashed to forget what they had experienced there, and in 1984, the lower levels of the base were filled in with cement. Over time, Preston claims he was able to reclaim a lot of his repressed memories, and then he decided to write about what happened. Since then, others have come forward and talked about the part that they played in the weird experiments. A man from Michigan, Stuart Swerdlow, has long claimed that he was one of the Montauk boys who were allegedly snatched and used in mind control tests. He says, when the experiments started, they'd target expendable boys like orphans, runaways, or children of drug addicts, the kind of kids no one would really come looking for. Others have talked about how up to 100,000 boys were subjected to horrific abuse at Montauk over a 13-year period. This man, Stewart, said again, the aim was to fracture your mind so they could program you. They would change the temperature from very hot to very cold, starve you, and then overfeed you. I remember being beaten with a wooden pole, and they loved to hold your head underwater until you nearly drowned. That was effective as it made the person likely to listen to and obey their, quote, rescuer. They also used LSD to put our brains into an altered state. That might be a key right there. Stewart, who claims that boys died during the project, also alleges that he witnessed sexual abuse used as a torture method. Perhaps the most outlandish of his claims is that these boys were sent down the time travel tunnels. Stewart, who is now a paranormal researcher, says, I went to Mars and back and to biblical times. In the early days, nothing like Martians and Jesus. In the early days, as they were perfecting the coordinates, a lot of boys were simply lost. They used other expendable people like homeless people. He says, I still have nightmares about it today. I wasn't there when the Montauk chair was shut off, but I felt it, like I had suddenly been unplugged from electricity itself. Given that Stewart, Preston, and others also claim claim beings from other planets took part in the research, it is easy to see why the Montauk Tales developed such a cult following among paranormal enthusiasts. No paper trail has ever been established showing who funded the supposed experiments at Montauk. And in response, in 2015, filmmaker Christopher Garetano made the documentary The Montauk Chronicles. And I wasn't able to find this on our... I Googled it, and every talk about Montauk coming to Netflix or anything like that was actually talking about Stranger Things. So I'm still not sure where you can find it, but it's out there. I think you can probably even watch it on YouTube. I think it's only a little over an hour. I think it's only a little over an hour long. So let's see, where am I at? He told The Sun, I grew up in New York but spent my summers in Montauk. There were always stories of paranormal mysteries. I found them funny and didn't believe any of them. After film school, I had the idea to make a film and interview some of these men myself. There have been some extraordinary claims made, but the more I have researched, the more I've begun to believe it is not so ludicrous. We know that there was military interest in paranormal phenomena. Project Stargate, which is a real thing, which began in 1978 and was later declassified, looked at whether psychics could perform remote viewing and see events from great distances. Also referring to the CIA's mind control program, begun in 1953 and halted in 1973, he added, MK Ultra, another real thing, used vulnerable people like prisoners, so why is it so far-fetched that orphans or runaway boys would be targeted? They seem exactly the sort of subject who would be easy to take, and Montauk would be the ideal facility in the winter. It's like a ghost town. Montauk has not been able to shake its reputation for mysteries. Paul Monty, who is the president of the local Chamber of Commerce in Montauk, says, "Locals don't mind the stories. We all talk about them. I even had my own encounter with an unexplained flying object in the sky over Camp Hero many years ago. No doubt the stories have been embellished, but I don't doubt that something went on there during the Cold War years. Even today, the base is patrolled and watched. They obviously don't want people in there." So yeah, that's what I have to read for you guys. The whole thing, I had originally wanted to do something on aliens, but seeing as how this tied into some nerdy shit like Stranger Things, I had to do it. So any questions from you guys?
No, that was really cool though.
I like it. It's really interesting.
I mean, it's with stuff like this and conspiracy theories in general, like that whole article I read, you take it in all at once and it's very hard to wrap your head around because they throw so many different things. I mean, there was time travel in there was monsters being created out of thin air. The part that it's just unexplained stuff, like the fact that it's still patrolled there. It's like there's just a lot of mystery surrounding a lot of these places, and the place that Tracy was talking about on Plum Island. I mean, like, what's up with New York, guys? like or Long Island, like there's, I don't know,
a lot of shit's going on.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. It's been a long night. I really don't know what else to say on it. It's a good one to look into because it ties into a lot of other different paranormal type stuff like that. And I knew about Montauk Project before Stranger Things had come out, and I remember when they announced that it was coming out, everyone was still calling it Montauk. So I mean, there's definitely similarities, and if you actually read any of the actual personal accounts aside from the ones that I just shared, you can easily see where the show lines up with that, and they did a good job of taking the inspiration from that. So yeah, did anybody want to mention anything before we wrap things up? We've been at it for a while, so.
Yeah, I've had a paranormal experience.
Yeah. Sorry, man. We were supposed to talk about that a while ago.
No, you're good.
Go ahead.
I'll make it quick though. So it was back when I was 16 years old. That wasn't that long ago. It was only like 10 years. So, but I was staying the night over at my friend's place, and we were in the basement, which is where their room was, and we were just chilling in there, chatting and stuff, and we heard footsteps outside their door, and we were like, okay, well, it's probably their little brother, no big deal. And so we kept chatting, but it still felt like there was something there, and we couldn't really put our finger on what exactly it was. So we checked it out, and we couldn't hear or see anything, so we were like, okay, whatever. We go back to the room, and out of nowhere, this grunge metal rap music started playing, like loud, like it was really, really loud. And so we bolt out of the room, and we run to where the computer is. The computer was off, but the speakers were playing this music at an extremely loud volume. And so we tried turning down the sound. That didn't help any. And then we unplugged the speakers, and it was still playing music. And it was like a really scary type, like rap, grungy, I guess is the best way I can really describe it.
You had a straight up poltergeist experience then, huh?
It was freaky as fuck. I guess I'm like an agnostic, I guess is the best way to put it. But that definitely made me really question things. I was like, maybe there is something we can't see, because it definitely would only make sense because of that. So it was super weird, and we couldn't figure out what it was. So, but their grandma also lived in the basement. She wasn't there that night, but her grandma apparently was into like a lot of spiritual stuff. So we're thinking it might be kind of involved with that. But
it's creepy. They say that all you have to do is essentially open the door, and I have not even Joe says the grandma was summoning demons.
Dude,
probably.
I'm pretty sure. Like,
but
she was a great lady, though. To be honest, like she was a really nice lady.
It's a good cover. But they say when it comes to the paranormal, I mean, you have to, most of the time you have to open the door, or someone around you has to open the door for that kind of stuff to happen. And I believe in it enough that I have never come close to even attempting to test that theory, and I don't think I ever will. I'm comfortable believing from a distance without having to see it, and I think it would definitely change my life, probably in a detrimental way, if I ever had to deal with something like that. You guys talking about sleep paralysis and the shadow people, and feeling something on your chest like that, it's the very thought of that is terrifying to me, and I applaud you guys for being even somewhat normal after all of that. So
I mean, it's been years and years and years, and it sucks, but you almost get used to it. It sucks every time, though.
Yeah.
Normal. Come on.
Yeah, I say normal in quotations and air quotes, but we can't do air quotes over the airwaves. So,
quote unquote.
Yeah. So yeah, another conspiracy night down. We'll probably try and do one every season from here on out, or as the mood strikes. But it's been another long episode, so we're gonna go ahead and pull the plug here, and hope that we can all actually sleep tonight. So, and yeah, a fat chance of that. But but I know I'm gonna have to go watch like a Disney movie, and not anything like Rugrats related, because that'll just make it worse. So, but yeah, thanks for sticking it out, guys. Listeners at home, make sure to check out our website at www.tbdpod.com. There's a whole bunch of shit in there that we're trying to get you to take a look at. So just give it a shot. Just try it. Just the tip.
and
Just
always
the tip.
remember, when life is giving you shit, sometimes it's better with dick. So
Ship a dick.
Shipadick.com.
Shipadick.com. Yeah.
Just working on that plug. I'll get better at this. Just give me time.
Okay, keep working, man.
That was good.
That's good. All right. Have a good night, guys.
Bye-bye. Bye.